Subtext. Subtext is an underlying theme, not explicitly announced, but more implied of hints and details throughout the story. The subtext in Bloodborne gave me a holistic understanding of the Healing Church's blunder. The subtext in Fast and Furious helped me appreciate the films as progressive gay romance saga. And the subtext of edgy anime protagonists helped me understand the depictions of depression in stories. The subtext of depression can be a bit difficult to execute with audiences, leading to a lot of misunderstood characters getting interpreted as generic edgelords or pussies. However, Life Lessons with Uramichi Oniisan seems to avoid this problem while tackling themes of mental health in its subtext. If you're looking for an anime that effectively handles concepts of psychological health without being over-the-top edgy, then I'd recommend the hilarious dark comedy of Uramichi Oniisan.
Thanks, Mailbox.
You're welcome.
We just got an email. We just got an email. We just got an email. I wonder who it's from.
Have you ever wondered how many drugs you'd overdose on if you had to host a children's educational program? Well, put down that needle because Life Lessons with Uramichi Oniisan brings that soul-crushing experience right to your door. The story of Uramichi follows a crew of washed up and miserable adults on the set of an educational children's show called Together with Maman. The miserable adults maintain cheerful composure and optimistic energy during shows. However, unintentional emotional breakdowns and depressing realities of adulthood leak out in front of the children quite frequently. This leads to a relatable dark comedy that uses humor to conceal the subtext of trauma and despair. The comedy and story hits in so many ways that it does an excellent job in being simultaneously serious and hilarious. Miserable adults having emotional breakdowns on a wholesome children's show is already funny as hell, but each laugh also provides a hint of horror and harsh reality. I laughed out loud when a 32-year-old woman broke down and cried in front of the children because one of the children asked for relationship advice and she started ruminating about never getting married. However, this also managed to get me thinking about the superficial societal pressures that women in Asian countries endure when they don't get married before the age of 30. It's this story's utilization of humor to mask the seriousness that makes this show a balanced slice of dark reality in the funniest form. Overall, great story that effectively depicts mental health without having an overly depressive narrative. If you're a fan of dark humor or any form of dark comedy, this is a show that will make you laugh your ass off one moment, while the next moment you'll find yourself thinking, God damn, that last laugh hit harder than my dad's beer stein.
Are you ready? What's something you have when you're a kid, but you don't get to have when you're a grown-up?
Freedom. Sense of joy. A feature.
All correct answers.
The children's educational program features 5 main adults that each have their own miserable quirks, adding to the humor and running gags of the show. Our main character is 31-year-old Uramichi, who stars as the gymnastics teacher, aka the host of the children's educational program. His main quirks revolve around his lack of emotional stability and mentioning the misery of adulthood to the curious children of the program. Next, we have 27-year-old Iketeru, who is one of the singers for the children's program. His main quirk is being a bit of a bonehead, and this shows in his fascination of juvenile dick jokes. The other singer of the show is 32-year-old Utano. Utano is a failed idol singer, and her main quirk revolves around her obsession and insecurity with marriage. The last 2 characters are 28-year-old Kumatani and 28-year-old Usahara, who play as the program's mascots. Kumatani is the most calm and collected of the 5, however that doesn't mean he's emotionally stable, while Usahara is the most extroverted of the 5, and ironically might be the most stable. Usahara's main quirk revolves around him constantly talking behind Uramichi's back, while being terrified of him as well. Together, the 5 characters work as a team to produce the children's educational program, while slowly having their souls drained away by life. The last character I want to mention are the children of the show. Their implementation does an effective job in highlighting the dysfunctions of our main characters in a humorous way. The children ask hard-hitting questions that usually leave our main characters depressed because they are reminded of how washed up they are. The children are also somewhat aware of how f***ed up the adults are. For example, the children behave cautiously when they see Uramichi in a good mood, because they've become accustomed to his frequent mood swings and understand that Uramichi will be defeated by his own thoughts in the next 30 seconds. It says a lot about the characters when even 4-year-olds are able to sense that the adults have a few screws loose. Overall, the main characters are mostly dead inside, but make this show feel very alive. Each running gag and each humorous moment of despair provides subtext and hints into how our main characters became so miserable. Just because the main characters are in their late 20s or early 30s doesn't mean a teenager or someone in their early 20s cannot comprehend the feeling of soul-crushing emptiness and the show does a great job implying a fall from grace that began at an early age. All in all, great character interactions and hints give the characters realistic depth through effective dark humor.
Time for booze, it's time for booze!
Life Lessons with Uramichi Oniisan is a show carried by its dialogue and constant subversion of expectations. It's not going to win any art awards or visually impress you like other anime, but it does set an effective tone visually throughout the show. The general color scheme is very bright, something you expect from a children's program. The bright color schemes makes the dark humor hit harder and more unexpectedly, especially when you see smiling children with adults leaking cynical thoughts like, language is a device used by adults to misinform and spread lies. Overall, the art has an innocent feeling aesthetic that subconsciously lowers your guard as you get slapped across the face with the dark nihilism of the main characters. The music of the show sounds as if the director asked the composer to create a soundtrack as broken as the character's psyche. The instrumental tracks mesh well together and sound like an orchestra of broken instruments used to convey failure. The vocal tracks used in the children's program directly juxtapose this by sounding alive and energetic. However, that only serves to conceal the lyrics being sung. For example, there is a children's song sung during a live concert that sounds very uplifting until you realize the lyrics are singing about being poor and alone while living with a cat as a companion. So yeah, you probably get the point. The music is hilarious instrumentally and vocally, while doing a great job at depicting the dead souls of our main characters. Anyway, thinking about that song too much is probably gonna give me depression. So I'm gonna wrap this up. Life Lessons with Uramichi Oniisan is a dark comedy with 3 main layers. The top layer presents a wholesome educational children's program, the middle layer is the humorous emotional failings of our main characters, and the bottom layer is the subtext of mental health and behavioral disorders our characters are likely experiencing. There is a misconception that this is a show directed at adults, thus requires a certain mindset to be enjoyed. However, as someone in their mid-20s with BPD, I can confidently say this is a show that makes you laugh your ass off while thinking about psychological health and the implications of childhood trauma. If you're tired of seeing the same edgy characters but still want to explore the psychological aspects of depression, then I recommend you give Life Lessons with Uramichi Oniisan a chance. The dark humor is not for everyone, but you'll know where the show is headed after watching 2 episodes. Don't let the facade of a kids show deceive you into skipping this hilarious plunge into mental health. That wraps up my recommendation for this video. I should probably see my therapist now, so take care everybody.
Tell me, what are you looking at, my silly little cat? Nothing is there, nothing is there. My life is meaningless and there's no hope in sight. Despite how much I'm lacking, I am still alive.